evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the BOE City Schools Board of Education. It is 7:00 p.m. on Monday, October 14th, 2019. We are at the Administration Building, 35353 Curtis Boulevard in Eastlake, Ohio. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal? Here. Mr. John? Here. Mrs. Brzezinski?
Here.
Mrs. Warren?
Here.
Mrs. Zerah?
Here. Will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Thompson, we have some speakers.
We do. I'd like to start first with Gina Kevrin. She is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and she's going to have a curriculum update for us.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have just a short video. We've had some principals and some parents and some teachers share with us some comments about some of the things that we've been doing in the district, in the classroom, as well as some parent programs. And so we videotaped them and got some comments to share with you this evening.
The district has embarked upon a clear path toward improving student achievement with an emphasis on standards-based instruction and a focus on strong literacy skills from preschool through grade 12. We want students to read, think, talk, and write every day. Beginning with early literacy, all pre-K through grade 3 teachers are participating in a series of literacy trainings that focus on the science behind reading, the why behind how students learn to read, and exactly what they should learn at every grade level. We've introduced a new family service this year, Read and Rise. Read and Rise provides parents with young children from birth through age 6 with ideas and support on how to encourage their children to enjoy reading and help develop their young readers to increase their readiness skills for school. Listen to what an impact this has already made for one of our families.
Like that, this program really helped my children because now they can know how to, when they pick up the book, especially the junior one, like the 3 years old, you open the book, and he open the book, he knows the front and the back of the book, the author, like the big ones, like the 5 years, 6 years old, 9 years, you know the author of the book, the illustrator of the book, and they know that they can read the book from left to right. I'm very thankful for this program because it really benefits to my children and my whole family. I hope other parents take advantage of it.
With a focus on the air-tested courses, teachers across the district have worked together to revise the pacing guides. Teachers have a large number of standards to teach each year, and the guides help them identify the standards to be taught and mastered each quarter to ensure that all academic expectations are met by the end of the year. To help monitor student progress, common quarterly benchmarks are given. Here are 2 elementary teachers who have seen increased student growth as a result of this focus on the standards.
Understanding the standards and what is expected from the students has changed the way I teach and has helped guide my instruction. When I sit down to lesson plan, the first thing I do is review the standards to make sure I know what I need to cover for that week for that unit. The instruction is then carefully planned with the end goal in mind of mastery of the standards. I think it's important for students to also understand what is expected of them and to understand the standards. As a class, we create interactive notebooks, and on each page of those notebooks, the standard is listed as well as an I can statement in kid-friendly terms. Since there are so many topics to cover, these notebooks help continually review the standards throughout the year. Through the use of these notebooks, daily review, and standards-based instruction, I really feel that my students have had a better chance of success within our classroom.
Providing professional development in the reading and writing across the curriculum strategies that transcend content areas in grades 3 through 12. Brett McCann, the principal at Willowwood Middle School, has been co-teaching in classrooms. One of the strategies they've been using successfully is the 3-level guide. That improves argumentative writing and helps students learn how to use text evidence. We have also shared these strategies with the staff at the Northern Career Institute. Their students, both high school and adult, have found them to be very helpful in the classroom, and it has improved their test-taking skills. Ohio's learning standards and state assessments have required everyone to rethink the delivery of education to our youth. The Willoughby Eastlake teaching staff and administrators have been working together to ensure that they increase their skills and tools in order to engage students in higher level academics, and we are seeing a transformation occur in our classrooms.
One of the things you saw at the end of that last slide, every student, every day. So in all of our classrooms, whether it's language arts or science or math, we're giving students opportunities to read every day, to think about it, to think critically and deeper about their content, to talk about it with others, working collaboratively, turning and talking to each other, interacting with the teachers more often instead of just sitting and getting information, and then writing about it every day. And we had already mentioned at last week's meeting and briefly on the video about the writing performance going up in the district. So we're really pleased that that's starting to take hold.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Lori Klanowski, and Lori Klanowski is our director of both NCIs, and she is by trade a nurse, but she does much more than nursing. She's a vital part of our cabinet. And without further ado, Ms. Klanowski. Sorry.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, and I think it's a wonderful segue that I'm here talking after Gina about the wonderful work that they're doing in the curriculum department. And I just want to remind folks that some of what she's doing can't take place if the setting at home isn't supported. And so when I got to Willoughby Eastlake, one of the first things that I recognized as an instructor here in the Career Tech programs is simply that it's not just about offering good instruction, but it's about offering students the support at home to be successful. And so as a nurse, I look at this through kind of a nursing scope instead of always a teaching scope. And so it's a care team approach for me. And so this presentation is just a little bit about what we focus on, not just at NCI, but within our district. And one of the things that's important to note is, students, they come to school and they're often dedicated and motivated to learn, but if things at home aren't exactly what we would think is perfect or normal, they start to struggle. And so we've developed this thought about the whole student or the whole family approach to offering them enough support to be successful in the classroom. And so this is kind of a wraparound service that helps reduce the barriers that are non-academic in nature. And so here's the problem that we see, and this isn't just at NCI where we see this, but it's also a problem that we see in K through 12. But kids can't learn if their life isn't safe and if their life's not healthy. And some of the obstacles for some students within our district are financial, some are housing. We have some students that have health issues, and those health issues range from either some type of chronic illness or maybe no insurance and no ability to have any wellness, well-child visits. And then things that can impact their social and developmental areas are things that are happening in the home, no power, maybe there's violence in the home, abuse in the home, or no parent figure in the home because they're working or elsewhere. And so what do we do about that? Because if we can't fix that, they can't be successful in school. And so that is to look at school as a community and how can we support kids at school with all those other things so that they can be dedicated learners and they can be successful academically. And so we've developed basically this care system approach, and we're hoping that more and more districts across the county start looking at what we're doing as this team approach. And so how do we improve student outcomes? Well, we've developed some unique partnerships, and we've developed a great team. And first it starts with our dedicated faculty and leadership. And I'm focusing here on NCI, but this is a standard throughout our district in every school. One of the other important steps for us was to develop a support system for the student. And so I'd like you to meet Kyle. She is our case manager.
My name is Kyle Nelson. I am the case manager here at Northern Career Institute Eastlake. People ask me sometimes what I do, and I feel one of the most important aspects of my job here at the school is to help identify barriers that our students may be faced with that are challenging them outside the four walls of the building that can interfere with their ability to be successful academically. I'm a support, I'm an advocate, and I help connect them with resources in the community to help them become successful. I like to think of myself sometimes as almost an emotional cheerleader.
And that she is. And that she is. And we've got a great team back here, leadership team back here supporting me today and identifying that these things are happening. And without them, and without the support of our team, we can't make this happen. And I want to give a shout out to Success Academy and Deanna in the back. She's been instrumental in helping this district with her students, and we'll talk about our clothing bank soon and her effort with 68 Hours of Hunger. And then lastly, our business partners. And I couldn't put our business partner photos in that little circle because there's so many resources that we, and good people that really help advocate for our students in this district. So I'd like you to meet one of our students. Although it seems that we often have a focus on adult education at NCI, really we are instrumental in supporting families of this district. And we have more than a dozen moms in one of our healthcare programs. And these moms are moms of children in our district. And so I'd like you to meet one student. She's going to talk about her struggles and how we're helping her and her children in this process.
Nursing is a very well-respected profession, and it's important to me, and I know it's important to some of you, to complete the program and reach a level of financial stability and independence. A lot of us who begin this program here are dependent on government assistance. We have very little support within our families, and basically we feel like we're on our own. But sticking with the program and completing it is really essentially a way out of that repeated cycle of food stamps, depending on the government. Some of us are on Section 8, and we want to transition our lives, whereas we weren't necessarily taught through our family, but we know in our own minds and our own hearts that that is not what we want for ourselves, for our children, or for future generations that come from us.
So this student that we're showcasing today knows that working hard and seeing her, having her children see her work hard will affect her family positively, and generations to come. And so she can't be in our program, and her kids can't be successful in our middle school without support, not just from the teachers in the buildings, but support outside. So one of the things that we found when the student came to our building or our program was that she was lacking health care for both her and her children. And we recently, October 1st, we recently opened our wellness center 2 days a week to students. And so as long as the students are enrolled in the wellness center, they are able to see a physician or a provider. And that was instrumental in keeping her kids healthy, keeping her healthy, keeping kids in school. Keeping kids in school means that they have better attendance and better academics. And so that's one of the initiatives that we're really proud of. And we're also striving to bring to the forefront soon vision care and dental care for our students. We know that 78% of third grade students have some sort of dental decay. And 25% of young children have vision problems that go undiagnosed. So once again, meeting these children's needs, our students' kids, the kids in our district will enhance their academics by many, I'm struggling there with that one, but it will increase their academics overall. So that lady that you saw, shortly after she arrived in our program, we found out that both her daughters and she were living in their car because they had a recent housing issue. And so it was our Kyle who this student went to, and we started to develop a plan for her to be successful. She has the desire, she just needed the support at home. We also reached out to the middle school to make sure that the kids were okay academically and to see if we can do some collaboration to make sure that the kids were going to be also successful in school. The first thing that we did was we got her a voucher so that she could be living in a hotel until we were able to get some housing in place. We also made sure that she had transportation and that she had food on the table. And we have a very small food bank at our building that we were able to offer this student and her children assistance. We also then got her hooked up with the food bank of Cleveland, and then thanks to Deanna and her kids, 68 Hours of Hunger now come out and offer assistance, along with some other resources, Food Force, which provides fresh fruits, vegetables, and dairy products, so that these kids aren't hungry when they go to school. Another issue that this mom had was clothing. It was where she was prior to, it wasn't safe for her to go to the laundromat, so we were able to provide her and her children clothes. We have a clothing closet that is a part of NCI Eastlake, and that clothing closet has items that are available to anyone anonymously in the district, and the guidance counselors contact us and say, we need clothing for, and then we go ahead and send out the clothing, and we have a lot of success in terms of clothing children in this district. If you look at this, I'd like to come back at the end of the year actually to show you what happens with our student. But this mom, she came into our program in August 2019. She's academically capable of completing the program so that she isn't living off of government assistance. That is her goal. We identified, she entered in August, we identified that she had issues at home in September. She now has housing, it's October, everything is good at home. We're going to keep monitoring her, and we're hoping in June that she completes the program. In July, she's licensed nurse, and she will hopefully be making between $24 and $30 an hour, which will be a substantial change from where she's at. So for this mom's success is starting at NCI. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And I think it's important to note, general fund dollars aren't used to support support these programs. These are through our partnerships and through fundraising. So we know, and if you look on our strategic plan, there's a section on the whole student. We know that for our students to perform at their peak academically, we need to take care of more than just what we do inside the classroom from an instruction perspective. Next up is Steve Johnson. Steve's going to do the first part. I'll do the back half. He's going to, Steve's going to provide us a security update with some changes in security, some of our policies and practices. That's primarily driven by our new construction.
Good evening, board members. Good evening, table. I just wanted to get people up on the changes in security and policies and practices driven by the new construction. Obviously, we are learning also at this end of it in the new high schools, South High and North High. Changes in security policies and practices, addressing students' movement caused by a variety of time starts in the high schools with the PSEO program, students driving, coming in early, coming in a little bit late. In our Nextel Tech program, community concern regarding practice, policies, and memorials. At North High, supervision in the building access plan. Entry points, main entrance from 7 to 2:30. Student union until the first bell rings. Monitoring stations at designated locations in student union. Administrators present and monitor students. Supervision by our SROs, which are our police officers. Main entrance from 7 to 7:45, lunch periods, and during other programs. Transition times, midday, around lunch times. Students monitor allows students to enter and exit throughout main entrance only. Daily building supervision, monitor station throughout the union, student union. Supervision and walk the academics and athletics music wings. There are people there to watch to make sure they're supposed to be going down these hallways. A lot of people try to sneak it by, go play basketball at lunch. If they can get in there, they would. Here are some of the locations of our student monitors. As you see, we have them up on the top balcony looking down over the whole student union, which is a great lookout point. We have one going into humanities, and then one over by the elevator on the other side, which would be the northeast corner of the building. Here we have one right by it looks like the Union Grill, which is Jeff Lyons. I don't know if he's trying to get a free lunch or he's monitoring. Yeah.
Well, it is ironic.
Yeah. And then here is our SRO, which we like to pinpoint them by the front doors. It's a good deterrent when you see a police officer at the front door. And back down here at this other entranceway, that we're going to our gymnasium area, which we kind of want to keep everybody in the Union Village part right there, commons. At South High School, supervision of the building is at a little bit different time slot. It's at 6:50 to 7:30. Entry points, there's 2 entry points at this building. One is the west side of the building, students, buses, and teachers. In the main entrance, there's also people that drop off students. Areas available for students is the student union and the upper part of the student union outside of the media center, which is a kind of nice place to sit up there. Supervision there again is student monitors, bus doors, student union, upper student union. After 2:30 to 4:30, supervision and just student union. And here again, these are local points that we have monitors going down each hallway, going out the back door, watching that back island back there, and right at the bottom of the steps that you see there. Here is the lower downstairs hallway going into the STEM wing, which is the other part of the, we'll call it I'm going to say Old South. It is South High School. This is the, right outside the gymnasium, right in front of the bathrooms, and going down the north corridor. We have a monitor there watching the students coming out the west entrance into the building. Now we're upstairs, and we're right outside of the Upper Union Village or Commons area, above the steps. There's one right there at that hallway entrance, and one right here looking down over the whole complex, looking down into the common area.
How long have these been in place, Steve?
These been in place, we've been doing this for over a month and a half on these locations.
I mean, the new changes.
Oh, the new changes we just put in place, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks ago. Changes in the security policy and practices. At this point, I'm going to turn over to Mr. Thompson, and he will fill you in on that. Thank you.
I just wanted to bring an update for us on memorials. As we built new schools, I think we endeavored upon something that we had never experienced before. And I certainly had not experienced it in my career. So at South High School, there was no need to move any memorials. But at Longfellow, there were 3 memorials. These families were contacted initially by Mr. Nedlick, who was employed in the district at the time. And those 3 students consisted of Vincent Robertino. He had a garden around a large tree and a sign. Joey Hendricks had a tree. Louis Linton, or Louis, had a library shelf, a tree, and a plaque. So we worked with those families, and each student was memorialized with the brick and their name etched on the brick in the new Joey's Garden, which was established near the school. The library shelf from Louis is in the new media center, and the parents have the plaque. And the plaque belonging to Vincent was returned to the family. He does have a brick. So those are the 3 students as they relate to Longfellow Elementary. North High School, there were 7 memorials there. Vanessa Horna had a tree and a plaque. So we've been working with the family, and we're going to put a plaque, her plaque, and we're going to actually add a butterfly to it that was significant to her and her mother. And so that is going to be welded onto the actual plaque and placed in the wall as we build that out. Hopefully that'll be this winter, still before winter hits, actually before winter hits. If not, it won't be constructed until the spring, but that it includes our total war memorial. Eddie Collins, the rest of these were, with the exception of number 7, so 2 through 6 that I'm going to read, were individuals who were, appears to me were, or at least, I'm not check that, let me just do it individually. Eddie Collins, which was the class of 67, had a plaque and a bench. We've been going through Joe Brooks. For those of you who know Joe Brooks, he is, I think Joe's in his 90s, and if you met him, you would think he was about 60. He has a crazy energy level, but he's deeply connected with our school and the War Memorial, and he's a veteran, former Marine, Semper Fi, and he's a community member. So we have a plaque and a bench being placed at the new memorial in memory of Eddie Collins, class of 67. Frank Ernie Kovacs, it's the class of 67. He had a plaque. The contact person's been Joe Brooks, and he has a new brick in the new memorial. A plaque or multiple veterans, the new memorial will be dedicated to them. The contact person, again, Joe Brooks, is the one who helped us design it and actually made significant contributions to the build-out of the memorial itself. Lisa Marie Zaccaro was the class of 1996. We tried to find the family. We were unable to locate the family. We did find an uncle who had passed away in 2017. Unfortunately, we weren't able to locate her family, but we are placing a brick in her memory. Thomas Tall Ackerman was class of 69. He's a veteran as well, killed in Vietnam, and we're working with Joe Brooks, and there is a brick in that memorial, in the War Memorial. And then Morgan Hansey We've been communicating with the mom. We're placing a brick, and unfortunately, the original plaque was stolen at some point or another before. It was the only one missing, and we're not sure why. We assume it was stolen, we're not sure. But it wasn't there anymore. So we've been in contact with the family. I have Tommy Yoakum here. He is with Then Design Architecture. He's going to talk a little bit about, he's an arborist, and he's going to talk a little bit about why were some trees moved and other trees not moved.
So my name is Tommy Yoakum. I'm with Greenland Engineering, and we're on the design team with TDA. On a lot of these school projects with existing trees, we recommend not moving them. And that has to do with the size of the tree canopy and the root system. And the chances of survival when you move those trees are pretty low. And there's a lot of factors that go into that with construction schedule and coordination of when the tree is going to be dormant, not dormant. And you can also go through all these steps, and there's also no guarantee of that tree surviving. So that's typically our recommendation to clients when we work with them on these projects with existing trees.
Do you, in the particular tree in question, which was a pretty, I think was a 20-something-year-old tree, can you speak specifically to that tree?
I can't speak specifically to that tree. I believe the initial site visits and observations were done in 2016. I wasn't with Greenland at that time. But I would imagine at the same time, most landscape architects, that would be a recommendation for existing trees.
Thank you. Additionally, we know that we didn't have a lot of policy to fall back on, and what you will note when we get to that section on the agenda, there is a policy that we've worked with the family pretty closely, helping us get their perspective as a family who I think was negatively impacted by the move, for sure. So they worked with us. She's been great. We've met with her several times. And so we think that that policy will do the very best we can to prevent. At some point, 50 years from now, when a new school is built and something is moved, there's policy to fall back on and guidelines to follow for the district. So that, I believe, concludes our updates. Yes, we can. Patrick, can you take care of that for us?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Could you take these things off the screens?
Yeah, I'm working on it.
You working on it? Oh, I didn't know you could do it from back there. Wow, okay. I'm impressed.
Mr. Ferguson, it's now time for public comment. Is there anyone who'd like to speak?
Yes, Mrs. Murray, I have 5 individuals who would like to address the board.
Great. Under our policies, these people have registered and have put their name, address, and group affiliation if there is one. Each person is allowed to speak for 3 minutes of time. All statements should be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. The portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is limited should be limited to 20 minutes, so we're right within that realm. If you're planning to make a comment or ask a question at the board meeting, you are attending a business meeting of the Willoughby East Lake Schools Board of Education. While we welcome comments or questions, because they're being asked in a public forum, you will receive a response in a subsequent public meeting held by the Board of Education, typically at the next month's meeting. Comments and questions that are in need of response are answered during the superintendent's comment of the next board meeting. If you are in need of a more immediate response, please email or call the superintendent. I believe there's a line on the form where you can check if you would like a more immediate response, and you will get that immediate response. We are here to listen. We are not here to banter. So, Mr. Parkinson, with that being said, our first person.
Mrs. Stacy McWigan.
Hi, I'm Stacy McWigan, 36260 Valley Vista Drive in East Lake. The Zaccaro's last name, their sister now is Carol. It's Karel. They live on Stevens Boulevard in the same house that Lisa lived in, so you should be able to locate them.
Which one? Slow down 1 second.
Can't hear.
Okay, say that
The
again.
last name of her sister is Karel. They live on Stevens Boulevard, and her first name is Kim. And I believe that that's Lisa's sister, so.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I was only coming up here today in regards to security. I don't have a lot, but I have family at North, and they mentioned to me that they were afraid, obviously, when the lockdown happened, but they were more upset because they didn't know what to do. They felt this is a new school, we don't know where to go, we don't know our Alice training, and they didn't know reunification or anything like that. And I thought by now there would have been something done, some type of drill, since we've had non-drills already.
We have
And
one scheduled. Steve, Alice drill has got to be really soon.
Yeah, it's the 23rd, I think is, I'll look at my calendar real quick, but I can answer that in 1 second.
because, I mean, especially the high school kids, if you give them, they want to know what they can do. It's not like, hey, just go here, go there. And with the South, it was the same thing. I actually spoke to one of the monitors who is new at the school this year, and she mentioned that she has no idea what to do, and she's employed there.
Yeah,
So-
we're drilling, and one change we're also making as feedback from community members. So if we do go into a lockdown, you will receive a voicemail and a text message on our dial-out system if we go into lockdown. With it, the thing you have to remember though is I've got to deal with the issue first before I worry about communication with parents. And you've already been lit up by your kids the minute it happens. So please understand that my message is going to be delayed, but I will get to it as soon as I feel the situation is safe. I happened to be at South that whole day and was there all through that
So
lockdown.
when the notice goes out to the parent, will it mention whether it's a soft lockdown or, I mean, maybe
We have the
not-
color system, and I know parents don't know it, so I'm just going to explain it.
Okay.
So if we're on yellow, red, or green, I'll explain what that means briefly to let them know. You know, for example, there was no imminent threat to South High School. So
Right.
that would have been good for parents. to know.
Yes, okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Stacy. Mr. Kirkendson?
Mrs. April Spiegel.
Mrs. Spiegel?
Hi, April Spiegel, 441 East Overlook Drive. I'm the parent of Vanessa Horna. The big issue with the memorials were that none of the family was notified before the cut down, the move, or the destroy. That was the big issue. Yes, the policy is in place now that will prevent this from ever happening again, which is really hard for me to understand. That you could look at a tree with a plaque in front of it and not notify one person out of 3 schools this was done to, that the plaque was not, or the person's family were not notified. Okay, I wanted the arborist report as to when the grounds plans were made, so that I will know how long you knew that I wasn't going to have a tree. That's it. Also, how could 3 schools, memorials, 3 schools, have not one person acknowledge that the families weren't notified? That, to me, was disgraceful. And yes, you have worked with me on what we can do to prevent it now. Now, some of these families you can't find, I can't believe South has no memorials.
There weren't.
Oh, they weren't moved, I'm sorry, thank you. But I'd just like to know who made the final decision for the grounds plans. Now, I worked in engineering at a main facility, and if we had an addition, they walked around the site. They looked at it, they took pictures. I want to know how this was missed in 3 facilities. 3, not just hurt. Now, hers can't be replaced, I know that, and we did fill it with the butterfly, because I do not ever want to go through this again. That's my answer, and I want the report as to when the arborist made that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spiegel. We'll get your answer then. I'm sure you talked to Stephen.
He did some of them, I agree,
Okay, we'll get
but
it.
some were not.
Sure. Mr. Parkinson.
And Mrs. Michelle.
Hello, I don't have anything I need you guys to respond to.
Name?
Oh, sorry,
That's
Michelle
okay.
Coleman. 560 House Court, Eastlake.
Thank you.
I just want to make a statement about in support of the levy. I just felt like I needed to say something to the community. I was recently at my high school alma mater's homecoming game, and their motto is, "A community is known by the schools it keeps." And it's right there on the football scoreboard. And it made me proud to be an alumna. I was proud that I got a good education. I had a community that supported its schools. And I think we need to think about that. How do we want to be known here? Because when we bought our house in 2000, people said, "Oh, you're Eastlake, are you sure you want to move there?" Well, we didn't grow up here, we didn't know its reputation, but we said, you know what, we're going to give it a chance, we're going to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So that's what we need to do here. We have a moral obligation to help the disabled in our community. We have a moral obligation to help the veterans and to help the seniors. We do this through our food pantries, our senior centers, Meals on Wheels, Lake Tran. It truly does take a village to raise a child. We have a moral obligation to help our children, to make sure they have a future, whether it's better than ours or the same as ours, whatever. We need to come together as a community. When my husband was diagnosed in 2005 with cancer, my neighbors came together and mowed our lawn and raked our leaves. That's what a community is about. We helped each other. It made me glad we chose to move here. And I want to stay that way. I want us to be a community that supports each other and helps each other like my neighbors helped me. I want to remind the people of Eastlake, when people didn't care several years ago for Mayor Filiberto and they were mad that he built the Captain Stadium, they voted no on the levy. Where did that get us? Fiscal emergency and paying for garbage, which costs more than it would have cost to pay the taxes. So you shot yourselves in the foot. Let's not do that again, people. We're gonna hurt ourselves if we don't do something now. And if people are so upset, they need to run for a board. I think there's 3 openings and only 3 people running. 2
people?
Yeah, there should be 50. You know, where? I don't get it. If you're not happy, do something. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And thank you for all the Where you go, Michelle?
Mr. Parkinson.
Mr. Mike Zern.
My name is Mike Zern. I live at 1054 Valley Creek in Eastlake. I am the Vice President of the City of Eastlake Council. I wanted to present the Willoughby Eastlake Board with a time capsule from the 2019 Eastlake Historical Adventure. We assisted the Eastlake Middle School with their 7th grade class field trip. The field trip included, it was September 27th. It included 4 destinations that covered presentations on Indian heritage, military history, the city founding, interest and facts in the city, such as when the Olympic torch came through and the first Ohio race car winner came from Eastlake, and there was a lot of interesting facts. Indian burial dig and excavation, unique wildlife in the city, and city government. I wanted to mention a lot of the individuals and organizations that were involved. The ECDC, EPAL, Principal Flower Rock, and all the 7th grade teachers. Ron Ironhorse, Mayor Morley, Chris Kranyak, Councilman Scully and Kusinek, Judan Horn from C&J Photography. She took pictures of the complete event, the Archaeological Society of Ohio, the Eastlake Women's Club, the Eastlake Library, the VFW, American Legion, Boulevard of 5 Blue Flags, Kindness and Justice for Eastlake Eagles, and then we had the meal for all 126 students and the teachers donated from Severinos and EPAL. And I'm requesting that the BOE State School Board hold the time capsule with letters that were written by all the students about their experience that day and what they feel the city will look like in 6 years upon their graduation, and give it back to the students and their families around the graduation time so they could share the memories. And I did bring some pictures, and I'm going to give you all the pictures, but we had a brown iron horse, which is a real Indian. He was there, and he had about 30 or 40 Indian artifacts that dated about 150 years old, which were really interesting. He was there. The library did 5 different areas on the history of the city, which was business and where the founders of the city, they played an integral role in that. Here's some other pictures of the library. We had Mayor Morley from Eastlake. He gave a presentation on city government, as well as the VFW American Legion. They talked about the significance of the military history in the city and both our 500 flags. We had the Archaeological Society from Ohio. They came in and they talked about the Indian burial dig, which is off of Lakeshore Boulevard. We had Eastlake Eagles come in and they talked about the unique wildlife. We've got eagles, we have horned owls, we have some other animals in the city which are pretty unique.
Mr. Zarin, your time is up, so could you pass those
Sure.
pictures to the audience, and then we'll collect them at the end of the meeting, and then the board will check them out?
Okay.
I love your eagles, and it's like I go there often and watch them. That was awesome. That's awesome. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you.
Next one.
Is there anyone else, Mr. Parkinson?
Mrs. Nancy Knack.
It's me.
Nancy Knack, 289460 for Drive, Willow, Ohio. I was asked to read a statement from an Eastlake resident. To my fellow Willoughby Eastlake residents, like you, I do not look forward to paying more taxes in lieu of the pending school levy. However, I will vote in favor of the levy simply because none of us can afford not to. In the nutshell, if the levy fails, Willoughby Eastlake schools will suffer, I'm going to screw this up, draconian budget cuts. Consequently, Willoughby Eastlake schools will deteriorate, which in turn will have an adverse impact on property values, which will lead to additional Willoughby Eastlake school budget cuts, thereby further eroding property values. Families that can move out and eventually, families that can will move out, and eventually the school system and neighborhood reach a point where they cannot return to their former status. You don't have to look very far to realize that my dire prediction has played out several times in the surrounding suburbs. It's hard to believe that at one time the Cleveland public school system were considered among the best in the nation. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Some of you may feel, I don't have kids in the system, so why do I pay more taxes? Others may feel, I'm retired and on a fixed income, so I can't afford to pay more taxes. Lastly, a few of you may feel, I rent, so I don't care either way. To those of you who do not have children in the system, do you like owning a property that is holding its value or perhaps going up? To those of you who are retired, do you really want kids wandering the streets, generating mischief because they've got nothing better to do? Moreover, as neighborhoods deteriorate, seniors become the primary target of less than savory elements that begin to move into the area. Lastly, to the renters, do you enjoy safe neighborhoods and the comfort of feeling relatively confident that no one will be vandalizing your vehicle in the outside parking lots? All of the securities we enjoy in Willoughby Eastlake area could change. Granted, the dismiss further, I predict, will not happen overnight. Such transformation takes several years. However, as a former resident of eastern Cuyahoga County, I have seen multiple neighborhoods go down the drain because of poor schools. As the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. A few extra tax dollars now will save us all a lot more down the road. In closing, please permit me to emphasize that I am not trying to instill panic. I simply speak from experience. To the administrators of Willoughby Eastlake Schools, I am willing to give you the tax revenue you seek. In return, I expect you to deliver a very high return. Sincerely, Carl Malta, Eastlake resident.
Nancy?
Also, I'm just going to say this real quick, the support staff, the support staff of Willoughby Eastlake professionals would like to donate a check for the levy.
Thank you. We'll have to go to the levy person, then next year.
Well, who asked?
Yeah. thank you.
Treasurer, so.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else, Mr.?
One last person, just.
Okay. Andy?
My name's Andy, I'm from Willoughby, and I just had a few points to bring up about the levy.
Andy, we need your last name and your address.
I prefer not to give it this time.
And how about just your address? I mean, that's what everyone does. No? It's our district policy.
All right, it's 5340 Strawberry Lane.
Thanks.
The points I wanted to bring up that I was talking to other parents about in regards to the levy were some of the cuts that were going to be made. Number one is the third one down was the Soy High School. And if we knew there was going to be shortcomings, the question is why was that actually implemented when we had two brand new high schools with all these nice programs and facilities? There was really no reason to spend money over at Soy, which is a totally separate facility. It costs money to operate. And so that was my main question on the high schools. If we knew that was going on, why did we spend that money knowing that it's going to be done?
A little louder, please.
So, you want to repeat the question? The gentleman in the back did not hear you.
The question was why was Soy High School started this year when we have taxpayers paid for two brand new high schools? So that money could have been spent somewhere else in the district for the whole year, which would help, I would assume, somewhat the budget cuts. So we're asking for more money to put something in place which really isn't necessary because they don't have the same programs that the high schools do. So that was kind of my question on that. And the next one was eliminate crossroads, which was the same question. That's an outside service we're paying for. But if we knew there was going to be a budget problem, why were we spending money outside of the district to get something that is not necessary because we have programs in place to work with students that have problems, or they can get them in contact with people. And then the last question was on the supplementals that were going to be cut. Is there any way that either paying through fees or parents could help pay the supplemental to keep those programs in place? Because it's like National Honor Society and Key Club are big programs which volunteer to the community. So it seems kind of detrimental to the school system to get rid of those programs. So that was kind of what I want to say. Thank you.
Andy, did you leave a phone number?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
There's no one else who wants to? So moving to the agenda, number 2 is the minutes. I'm looking for approval of the minutes from our meeting on September 9th, 2019. Is there a motion?
Madam President, this is Paczynski. I make that motion on yes, the minutes of September 9, 2019.
Thank you, Mrs. Paczynski. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zerman?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting September 9th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Paczynski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Warner?
Yes, motion is carried. Item 2B, approval of the minutes from the meeting September 14th, 2019. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal?
I move that we approve the minutes of September 14, 2019.
Thank you, you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second?
Madam President, I will second.
Thank you, Mrs. Brzezinski. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting September 14th, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal? Yes. Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Abstain. Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Yes, the motion is carried. And 2C, minutes of the meeting September 21st, 2019. Is there a motion?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zimmerman.
I make the motion to approve agenda item 2C, approval of minutes of September 21st, 2019.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second? Mr. Jones. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of the meeting September 21st, 2019. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? Dr. Beal? Yes. Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Ford?
Yes, motion is carried. Now time for the treasurer's report. Mr. Parkinson?
Thank you, Mrs. Warner, members of the board. The first item for your consideration is the financial report ending September 30th. Information will be found under Exhibit A. Second item for the board's consideration are the amended appropriations for fiscal 20. These will include the cuts for August 2019. Just so that you know, the appropriations reflect the cuts now. That information will be found in item B. Item C, the amended certificate of estimated resources is a document for the county auditor's office, and that is included in item C. The next item for your consideration requires a separate vote. This is a settlement with the Board of Revision. This is with the joint property. The district will be whole as a result of this.
Thank you. You've heard the treasurer's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Mrs. Brzezinski.
I make a motion to pass item 3D, there you go. Resolution approving settlement of Board of Revision matter.
Thank you, Mrs. Brzezinski. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I will second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Bill, could you explain a little bit more about what that, how that works? So we have an attorney who reviews all of the cases that are before the Board of Revisions, and this law firm also reviews all of the pending.
Can you speak up, Bill? Just get loud.
They also review the pending cases of potential declines in property before the beginning of the calendar year. So what they do is, with each case, they review the matter, and if it's a significant decline, they'll reach out to that particular property owner, figure out what's going on. They'll also talk to the county auditor's office to figure out what's going on. And in this particular case, we were able to reach a settlement with the property owner that does not cost the district. There are some cases in which we settle and the district does make out, and there's some cases, like for example, in the event of a sale, where a property was maybe listed at a higher value than the actual sale. We will have our experts come in and take a look at that, and experts say that we can't justify more than what that property sold at. So there are some cases in which the district does have some loss of tax funds, but it's done on a case-by-case basis. And it's one we order agency.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Dr. Beal? Yes. Mr. Jones? Yes. Mr. Warner?
Yes, the motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson?
Next item for the board's consideration, another vote, is the resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for Master Electric to review all of our property tax bills to determine whether or not it is feasible to save additional monies on top of the rates that we already currently pay the various utility companies. So they'll come in, review every single bill, do an audit, come back to the district with a report, and make recommendations. This particular item allows that contract to be authorized and for that to be.
Thank you, Mr. Parkinson. You have heard the the treasurer's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal.
I would like to move that we approve item 3E, a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of a master electric energy sales agreement between the district and Power for Schools endorsed electric supplier, Energy Resources.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. Is there a second? Mr. Jones. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 3E, a resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of the master electric energy sales agreement between the district and Power for Schools endorsed electric supplier, NG Resources LLC. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Dr. Beal? Yes. Mr. Jones? Yes. Mrs. Trinsky?
Yes.
Mrs. Earl?
Yes.
Mrs. Warren?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Parkinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Warner. Members of the board, next item for your consideration is the renewal addendum of the ASO contract with Medical Mutual. This is what's referred to as a stop loss. I'm sorry, that's the next one. This is the contract with Plain. Okay, item G, that's a stop loss contract. What stop loss basically means is if a particular claim cost gets too high, there's a ceiling that the district hits and will not pay anymore. So what happens is another insurance comes in and takes care of the losses to us for that particular claim. So what happens is any particular high dollar claims are absorbed by this particular insurance company, and then we're capped at a certain level of loss on a monthly basis. This is a common practice with some insurance plans and fully insured plans or self-insured. Item H for your consideration is a revised service agreement with Cornerstone Christian Academy. That particular contract is there for your review. Next item is a service agreement with A+ Learning and Development Centers. This is referred to as the Hebrew Academy, and that particular contract can be found under item I. Next item for your consideration are purchase orders and blanket certificates. There are 5 purchase orders for your consideration and 3 then announced certificates for your. Item K is, this is the wellness fund that was established by House Bill 166. Wellness dollars, we are projected to receive about $563,000 this fiscal year and $791,000 next fiscal year. And per the auditor's state, these monies, although they flow through the state funding formula, have to be recorded in this separate fund outside of the general fund. The auditor's state is also saying that this money, the revenue, cannot be included in 5-year forecast. So that will be next month. And I'll get into a little bit more detail in House Bill 66 on this one at that time. This establishes funds. We've already received our first payment. We're broken down to 2 payments. And this will allow us to set up the fund, deposit the money, and use the funds according to possible business strategies. Item L for your consideration are advance of general funds. There's for you, there's the food service funds. There are 3 returns of advances under item M. We are doing 1 transfer of funds to the employee termination fund, and that is item N. Item O are student activities and proposed budgets, goals and purposes, and revisions for the current fiscal year, and those are listed for your consideration. Item P is one grant fee acceptance, and this is the United Way for the amount of $1,050. Item Q is the sale of surplus equipment for public auction or scrap. This is the large box truck that we had in our inventory. It is 12 years old. We have since bought a new one out of the guy funds. And it's 22 different trucks. It has trucks that sit outside 24/7. And lastly, from our report, it gives some donations, various individuals and organizations
Madam President. So we had several questions at the last board meeting. Mrs. Fulton spoke with us, and she didn't ask for an answer, if you recall. I think hers was just was a quick question that she had heard about a clinic, which we answered on the spot. Mrs. Spiegel spoke at the last meeting. We've worked with Mrs. Spiegel, as she mentioned. There are two items I think I understand that you're looking for at this point, and I'll make sure that I get with you. I think I can answer those questions, and I'll talk with you after the meeting if you're available.
One of them was the arborist report.
Right, understood. So I will talk with Mrs. Spiegel after the meeting. Mr. Black spoke, if you remember, and he spoke about vaccines. I mean absolutely no disrespect in any way. I'm just not 100% sure what he was really asking, other than I just wanted to respond by saying that our policies as they relate to vaccines follow the Ohio Revised Code. Families may opt out of vaccinating their children for a couple of specific reasons. A child has a medical condition in which a vaccine would have adverse effect on health. They can do that. A family has a religious or philosophical belief opposing vaccines, they can opt out. Family is in the process of working with a doctor to complete immunization in the immunization process. So I think his answer was, I think his point was vaccines are bad and people shouldn't be subject to vaccines, but by policy, our students aren't unless they choose to participate in vaccines. They can opt out of vaccines if they choose to. And then Carl spoke briefly and handed the time to his wife, April. I'm just following the script, gang. And then Bud Moore spoke, and if he had questions, quite frankly, I didn't understand them. So I think that concludes the question and answer section. And then, Madam President, for levy report, Bill and I have been pretty much on the road every night, as have many board members joining us, and we appreciate that very much. Andy, correct? Andy?
Yes.
Andy, I think if you could make it to one of these meetings, all of your questions would be answered. I'm 100% certain.
Okay.
But we've had multiple speaking engagements, one community meeting each at North and South High School. We've had small group meetings with each PTO and booster organizations. We've had meetings with each staff in their buildings. We spoke at the League of Women Voters evening at Breckenridge. We met with each city council to explain the levy and take questions. The only city we have not spoken is Willoughby Hills, but we are scheduled to speak at Willoughby Hills on 10/24, followed by an 8 p.m. meeting at the Willoughby Hills City Center. Thank you, Brian, for organizing that for us. We have upcoming meetings at Willowick Public Library. Thank you, Rena, for putting that together. The Willoughby Hills Community Center. I'm going to probably, honestly, my favorite place to present, Breckenridge Village Community, this week as well. I have never been to a place that has more retired teachers in one room, and so they're usually pretty friendly, so that works well. Absentee voting began on 10/7. Absentee chasers are sent each morning to anyone who pulls an absentee ballot. So if someone pulls an absentee ballot, as their absentee ballot arrives, so does what we call a chaser or a document from a flyer from us. We've ordered more yard signs than we ever have in the past. The most we've ever ordered was 1,000 for the bond issue. We ordered 750, moved those in 24 hours. We ordered 500 more. They moved in 2 days. And then we've had more requests for more yard signs, and we ordered 200 more. So this is by far the highest number of yard signs we've ever put out, and 95% of those are out. That was accomplished through, as you can imagine, a multitude of volunteers. So thank you to, I'm sure there's some volunteers sitting out here right now. Thank you very much for that effort. We've never had in my 9 years here an organized student group. Students came to us. They've already produced a pretty compelling video, if you've had an opportunity to see it. That was not directed or scripted by the district, rather the students. They had a meeting just the other night, and it's being led by a sophomore in high school who's, I'm certain, is going to be CEO of a company at some point in his future. He's very, very sharp. They've created their own messaging, and they're producing more videos, and as you can imagine, they're using venues to push videos out that I never heard of. I heard of one of them, Instagram, but that just shows how bad I am, but then I don't know anything past that. But they were spitting out words I didn't know what it was, but they're pushing them out on those. And on our websites, for sure, absolutely. Our parent and staff volunteer groups have been assisting with social media, corrections, passing out yard signs, passing out literature on streets, and we've had a presence at our home football games, which has been very good. You can get more information about our levy on supportweschools.org, and we are still busily working to try our very best to make sure that at the very minimum, people in our community know we're on the ballot, why we're on the ballot, and understand the great questions that Andy asked, get those asked to not just Andy, but to as many people as we possibly can. And I believe we are meeting this week with both booster groups from South and North High School, band boosters. Is it Thursday?
At North, yeah. Wednesday at North.
Wednesday at North. So I look on my calendar one day ahead. And that's as far as I go. But we, is there anything you wanted to add to that, or to cover it?
Yeah.
I think that's where we stand on our levy effort.
And none of those things are paid for?
None of those things are paid for with district funds, and none of those efforts are done during our workday. I would defy you to define our workday, but nonetheless, none of them are done during a typical workday.
Thank you. It is now time for your resolutions.
Where we still have C.
Sorry.
Yes, so Mrs. Bowers, this is the 2019-20 IDEA Part A Special Education Funds. Is that, are we pushing that to January, or did you?
No, that's just the description of what percentages of money we're using for what areas.
Okay. And that needs to be on, that information is sent to our board members.
Right.
So, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. The first item for your consideration is the Willoughby Eastlake Public Library Trustee recommendation. And I believe we are represented here. Thank you for coming. And so that is a resolution that needs to be voted on.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. You have heard the superintendent's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure?
Madam President,
Mrs. Paczynski.
I make a motion to pass Resolution 5A, the Willoughby Eastlake Public Library Trustee Recommendation.
Thank you, Mrs. Paczynski. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 5A, Willoughby Eastlake Public Library Trustee Recommendation. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Paczynski?
Yes.
Mrs. Zerner?
Yes.
Dr. Beal? Yes. Mr. Jones? Yes. Mrs. Moore?
Yes. Motion is carried. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Item B for your consideration is the professional development stipends. This is to help train our staff for the 1920 school year. The training is important. It is also important to note these are Title IIA federal funds and not general fund dollars.
Mr. Thompson, again, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. What is the board's pleasure? Mr. Jones? Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second? Dr. Beal?
I will second that motion.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve item 5B, professional development stipends recommendation. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jones? Yes. Dr. Beal? Yes. Mrs. Zerner?
Yes.
Mrs. Wojcicki?
Yes.
Mrs. Herman?
Yes, motion is carried. Mr. Thompson?
Thank you, Madam President. Item C for your consideration is special services agreement that we have with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio. That is our new ESC. They changed their name once again. That is the formerly known as the Cuyahoga County ESC. So this is to provide special education services for our students that are not educated within the walls of East Lake City Schools. Item D for your consideration is the 2019-20 revised secondary student fee schedules. You saw this last month, and this is just to make one change to those fee schedules. Item E for your consideration is an overnight and/or out-of-district field trip request, and the question came also to my attention. You know, that is after the November levy date. So how is this impacted? These students will have to be paid in full before the November deadline. And so we do not want to take away the opportunity for these kids to go on this predicated on we might not pass. So they are securing this funding and will go on that trip regardless of the levy outcome.
The students fundraise these funds for them to go.
That's correct. These are not general fund dollars. Thank you, Bill. Item F for your consideration is an overnight out-of-district field trip request as well. This is a non-stipend based, so it's not impacted by our levy cuts and totally funded by parents outside of the purview of the general fund. And it is somewhere I would like to go as a yes, Costa Rica. I will be a volunteer chaperone. Thank you. Yes. And item G for your consideration is the personnel agenda. These folks are not officially employed until we receive satisfactory records from the Bureau of Criminal and Identification and Investigation, the Ohio Department of Education, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Thank you. Now we go to policies.
Yes, so we have a litany of first reads for policies. If Mr. Murphy in the back, there you are, Mr. Murphy. I think this is becoming your claim to fame, is it not? Staying up on policies.
I can live with that.
Yeah, it's one of his claims to fame. But I am very appreciative because this is kind of grinded out work. He does an excellent job of keeping us up to date with the law and governmental changes.
So, just the only thing I noticed were a couple of them didn't, and I know it's the first reading, but they didn't have the change of date at the bottom. You know how some of them have,
Yeah,
2019.
when we send it in, they take care of that automatically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is, we do this, we read 15 policies for this meeting, and we reread them, and it's mostly about Ohio Revised Code. So it's not some crazy stuff that we're doing, we're trying to abide by the law as it changes.
How this works for those of the community, we work with a company called Neola. Neola sends a representative. These are vetted through their legal department, and they still send out a field rep. Field rep meets with Mr. Murphy, who's the assistant superintendent, and walks Mr. Murphy through all those changes. If there are anything controversial at all, he'll pull me in. Sometimes there is a little bit of room to move on the policy, but very often it's not. It is just, this is the legal change, and in order to be in compliance with the Ohio Revised Code, you must make this change, most of them. So, and then those are brought to the board's attention.
Riveting reading. I welcome you all to read them with us. Meeting notification, the next regular meeting of this Board of Education is scheduled for November 11th at 7 p.m. right here on the first floor of the Board of Education Administration Building at 35353 Curtis Boulevard in East Lake. I'm looking now for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Madam President,
Mrs. Zern.
make the motion to adopt item 8A, adoption of the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mrs. Zern. Is there a second?
Madam President,
Dr. Beal?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Beal. It's moved and seconded that we adopt the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Parkinson, will you call the roll?
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mrs. Warren?
Yes, motion is carried. Is there anyone from the press here this evening? If there are none, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Mrs. Brzezinski.
I make that motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Jones? Thank you, Mr. Jones. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting at 8:22 p.m. Is there any discussion? Will you call the roll?
Mrs. Brzezinski?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mrs. Warren?
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. Stay warm.